Welcome, bet riders around the world. My name is Gary Solomon, and you're watching the Laid Back Bike Report. Well, it sure is nice to have you all with us today. Let me tell you what is coming up on the show. We have, first of all, a segment on Parbike, which is a side-by-side tandem. I think you'll enjoy that segment. Next, our featured segment with our pal Ron Thompson, who is actually with us live today. And he's going to present his experiment about upright versus recumbent speed. So uprights versus recumbents. So something that we've talked about a lot over the years on the show. Ron did a little test of those. I think you'll find to be very interesting. Then we got Nina Paley, who was with us at CycleCon and got the chance to test out a bunch of stuff on the test track. So she's going to give us her thoughts on the Tie Glide, the Steintrike, and the HASE Kettwiesel that she had a chance to do there. And Denny rode a trike alongside and shot some video of it. So I think you'll like that. And lastly, we have a viewer submission from Sean Greener about the Honor of the Warriors ride that was in North Carolina last month. So first of all, before we get too far into all that, let me introduce you to my crew, the indispensable individuals who make this show possible. And there they are. So first of all, down in Jackson, Mississippi, it's Trey Bourgoyne, the media guy. Hi, Trey.
Hello, folks. Glad to be here.
And pulling in at the very last second, slamming on his brakes and sliding into the director's chair, it's Larry Seidman. Hello, Larry. Colorado Springs, right?
Hey, Gary. Yep. Looking good.
All right. And let's see. Always hard to know where she might be at the current time, but I believe she's in L.A. It's Sylvia Halpern. Sylvia, great to have you with us.
Yeah, nice to be here from sunny Los Angeles.
Very nice. That sounds especially nice since the snow started flying here in Ohio yesterday. And let's head down to Cold Spring, Kentucky, where our buddy is sitting in the dark under the moon. He's not often in the dark, but he is right now. Larry Varney, what's up?
Not much. It's cloudy out there, and 36 degrees. We had snow too. So anyway, glad to be here with all of you.
Great to have you with us, Larry. So let me tell you next, if I could, how you guys can participate in the live webcast today. You can do so on our live chat. Now, that is available to you both on Facebook in the comments of the video there, or in YouTube. You can see it off to the side or down below, depending on what device you're watching on. So if you're on live chat, please let us know where you're watching from and make your comments, ask your questions about anything during the show. And of course, all of our panelists will be on the live chat to answer your questions there, or just, chat among yourselves if you like. So it would be great to have you participating. Now, how can you support the Laid Back Bike Report? Well, there's a number of ways. You can like us on Facebook. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. And you can find out lots more by jumping on our website, laidbackbikereport.com, right by clicking on that little white eye that you see up there. So if you go there, you can find all kinds of interesting information about past shows, future shows. You can see our audio podcasts. The list is there as well. We have each show in audio podcast, and you can become a Patreon supporter of the show, as all of these folks here have done. We really appreciate that support. You can do so for as little as $1 a month. Okay, guys, how about the sponsors of the Laid Back Bike Report on these monthly webcasts? They are invaluable to keeping us going. Let me tell you who they are. First of all, we have TerraCycle. makers of exquisite recumbent parts and accessories for your bent. And Trailside Trikes, a fine recumbent trike shop on the Withlacoochee Trail in Florida and now in Knoxville, Tennessee as well. And TerraTrike Green Speed, the best in leisure, performance, adventure, touring, electric, and portability. Wherever your adventure leads, TerraTrike will take you there. And Green Speed, where Ian Sims designs bring performance through science and engineering. And Laidback Cycles, the top USA dealer for TerraTrike and the premier source for Kettwiesel, Ice, and Green Speed. We give you the freedom to ride. And Connecticut Yankee Peddler. We feature multiple brands of trikes, including electric assist models. Test rides and Southern Iowa hospitality are always available at our megastore in Chariton. And Avenue Trikes. With the gearing you need and the comfort you want, it's time to enjoy riding again. They're in stock, ready to ship, and only $19.95. Dealer inquiries are welcome. And Azub. This company is a 3-time winner of the Trike of the Year award and has brought several unique technological solutions to the world of recumbent bikes, including the titanium front suspension on the Tie-Fly trike. Combined with the tuned rear suspension, it provides its owner with absolute comfort throughout the ride. And Recumbent PDX. With a 150 trike inventory, Recumbent PDX is the West Coast's only cat trike megastore. We have over 20 trikes on our showroom floor just waiting for you to test ride through our beautiful Portland neighborhood. Call or email to schedule your test ride today. And EcoCycles, leaders in electric assist and customer support, with a line of specialized conversion kits to retrofit just about any bent model out there. Check them out at cycles.eco right now. Well, they changed that, and I have not been able to say that right the last 2 times. So sorry about that, Dave. Cycles.eco. All right. On with the show here. First of all, Honza is not with us today. He and his family are working on rehabbing an old house, and they are deep in the middle of it. So he's kind of busy right now and can't join us. But we miss you, Honza, and hopefully we'll see you next month. So we're going to jump right into the first segment. My wife and I had a chance to jump up to Toledo, Ohio. We were invited by Jared from Parbike to see his line of side-by-side tandems. So here's that report right now. Here we go. We're on a Parbike tandem, Marilyn and I, going down a beautiful street here in Perrysburg, Ohio. Kind of fun. We are here in Perrysburg, Ohio with Jared. And Jared, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
So Jared is the CEO of Parbikes, and this is their featured bike, and it's called the Parbike Sport. And I'm going to let you, Jared, tell us a little bit about this, and we'll take some close-ups and have people have a look,
Yeah,
okay?
Not a problem. Great. So this is our Parbike Sport. This is obviously a 2-seat tandem quadricycle. Each rider pedals independently on their own 21 gears. We do have a motor option available if people wanted to add a motor to it. The seats adjust independently. We have rack and pinion steering. Ackerman steering, so our front wheel turns, they turn at different radiuses, so there's no chatter when you're making turns. We power both back wheels at the same rate, but they freewheel forward. And it's really a great bike for more of a social biking experience.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of tandems, but this is a nice side-by-side where Marilyn and I already gave it a little try. You were right next to each other, so you can easily converse and have a nice ride with it.
That's exactly correct. I originally bought one for my family in 2018 and fell in love with the product.
So tell us how you acquired the Parbike.
I ended up buying one for my family, like I said, in 2018 for Christmas. Fell in love with the product so much. I was 3rd generation at a family business, decided it's time to get out of here, and called up the owner of the company. The company was known as Veer Bike at the time. and asked the guy if he had interest in selling the company, and believe it or not, he did. So off we go in early 2020, career change and onto four-wheel bikes.
All right. And so your intention then was to make some changes and bring your idea of this product to market then, yes?
Yeah, it was. The original owner of the company was an Amish family. And so great job building, not as great marketing or being able to answer phones and emails and things. So we needed to get, I think, a little bit more of a media presence out there, get on social media and stuff. So ended up working out well. The guy who I bought the company from said, you know, hey, I really like making them still. And so ended up working out. He's still making the bikes for us, and now I just run the company.
Sounds good. All right. I think maybe it's time to take a closer look here at the Tandem. So why don't we get some close-ups and you can explain all the features.
So our front arm pivots, which is nice on a quad because it keeps all four wheels on the ground at all time when you go over any sort of undulation. We have Ackerman steering, so when you turn the wheels turn at a different radius. So the outside wheel is going to turn at a sharper radius than the inside wheel. And what that does is allow you to, when you make turns, the wheels aren't going to chatter. This one has the battery under our front basket. That's a 48 volt, 24 amp hour battery with a 1,000 watt Bafang motor on it. We do have our front cargo basket on this bike, which is great for taking groceries, you know, putting the kids' backpacks in there, a purse, just some extra cargo room. For our steering mechanism, we have a rack and pinion steering, which gives you nice, smooth steering for whichever way you're turning. Each rider pedals independently on their own 21 gear system. You don't have to pedal in cadence. You can be in different gears, which allows for riders with different abilities to ride together comfortably. Each of our seats also independently adjust. We can accommodate a rider without making any modifications from about 4'5" to about 6'9". And we power both back wheels regardless of who's pedaling at the same rate, but they do freewheel forward. So that way when you're making a turn, your outside wheel can turn faster than your inside wheel to make for smooth turns. When we do add the motor, our driver's side does have to go to a 7-speed because we only have the option of putting one sprocket on the front. So we use Shimano components. So we have our rear derailleur, our front derailleur, cell phone holder. That's for the passenger side. Our rear derailleur for the driver's side. Our display. Our hydraulic disc brake lever, side view mirror, and steering wheel. So we have 24-inch wheels and 2 back axles. Each axle is stopped by our braking system is Willwood disc hydraulic brakes. Very high-powered braking system. Sometimes people think it's a little too strong, a little too much braking power for our bike, but we do have a trailer that can be attached on the back that will add another 2 additional riders pedaling independently on their own 21 gear system. So we can add quite a bit of weight to this bike. And we do have a small little cargo platform in the back. Great place to, once again, put additional groceries or something. If you have a small kid, they can sit on it. We do have some accessories in the back that allow for child seats. So we have a 1,000 watt Bafang motor powered by a 48 volt, 24 amp hour battery. Without pedaling, on an ideal day, you can get about 20 miles or so without pedaling. Pedaling will only extend your distance. The bike can also go about, at top speed, about 20 to 23 miles per hour. As you can see, a little bit of a longer frame, which also helps absorb some of the extra bumps and undulations on unpaved surfaces or even sometimes on the road. So our Tandem is ideally for, we have a large market of customers that don't have the ability or don't feel stable enough to ride a 2 or even a 3-wheel trike. Trikes sometimes have the ability to give people a false sense of stability. It's a very stable bike, so people that have balance issues, people with families of someone with special needs. We have a lot of people also that are big into camping and will replace a golf cart with a Parbike Sport because they are street legal.
What about the people who have tried this out? So are you getting any feedback? What have you heard?
Yeah, most of the customers who get our bikes absolutely love them. When people get them, obviously, you're going to be noticed. You ride up higher. It's a very unique looking bike. You will have people stop and ask you frequently, where'd you get it? It looks like so much fun. It's definitely a head turner for sure.
Good. And you also told me there was a story about some person, a famous person that tried it out, or what's that about?
Yeah, I had a call from a lady, Janine Russell, a few months ago, and she told me her husband's a former NBA player, very, very tall, and she's needs to get him up and moving again. So long story short, I ended up finding out it was Bill Russell. So unfortunately, he passed away not that long ago, but Bill Russell, for the last few months of his life, was riding around on a Parbike.
Wow, that would have been a sight to see for sure. Where can you get a Parbike like this?
Sure, you can go to our website at www.parbikes.com. You can send me an email at Jared, Jared, @parbikes.com, or you can give us a call at 800-531-2737. Give me a call up. I try to answer every phone call, respond to every email that I can as fast as I possibly can.
So, Jared, give us an idea about the price range for the Tandem.
Not a problem. For our 2-seater, they start off at about $5,000. That includes shipping. That includes your taxes. And then they do go up from there based upon the accessories and things you want to add. This one has a motor. It has our upgraded seats on it. It's a custom paint color. They can go up to about $8,000 or so from there.
All right. Well, it's a lot of fun to ride. I can attest to that. So, guys, if you're interested in having a look, go ahead and contact Jared. The Tandem is really cool. Thanks, Jared.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, we had a great time riding that. It was a beautiful autumn afternoon, as you might have seen there. And I guess the really interesting thing about that Tandem is the steering wheel. I'm not used to controlling a bike with a steering wheel, but it had rack and pinion steering, so it's similar to a car kind of thing. Anyways, it was a blast to drive that around. I could see how that could be just the right solution to some people's driving around town thing with pedal power or with e-assist, however you wanted to configure it. So thanks again to Jared for inviting us to his Toledo home to have a look at that. And we'll have the information about Parbike in the description below. So if you guys are interested in more information, you can contact him about that. All right, let's move along to our featured segment here. This is a very interesting look at a comparison between upright bikes and recumbent bikes in terms of their speed. And Ron Thompson is a mechanical engineer who has taken the time to do a serious evaluation as really he spent plenty of time looking at various configurations. So I think you guys will enjoy this look at this comparison. So Larry, let's have a look. Ron, why don't you go ahead with the presentation? I'm going to pop it up here on the screen for you, and I will let you take it away.
Okay. Good morning. It's morning here in the Mid-Atlantic, Gary. Good afternoon to the community. Glad to be here again. Gary, thanks for having me on. Always happy to talk about G4 bicycles. Particularly appreciate the feedback, too, that I got back in, I guess, July of last year when I kind of introduced the G4 bikes. It's just wonderful to get all of the input from the community, and I don't know what I don't know, so but the community does. Someone always knows. Hey, Today, I'm going to talk just about speeds, okay, upright and recumbent speeds. I found it pretty interesting. I'm going to present a lot of data, okay. I'm going to go over it pretty quick, all right, because I don't want to put anybody to sleep, but it's interesting, and it's going to be online, okay. You can go to www.g4bikes.com, which is sort of a under construction website that I put together, but the charts will be there, so the information is there, and I can go over it quickly today, and people can look at it as detailed as they want, and I'm glad to interact online with people. My email is here on the cover, Ronald A. Thompson 7641@gmail.com, and it's also on the website, so I can be contacted. Okay, let me see if I can work the slides. Okay, good. Background. Again, I appreciate being introduced back in July of 2021, but just a refresher. I'm kind of a lifelong bicycle commuter, an engineer, a shop guy, kind of a passion for shop work. But I get the passion to build better bikes. Okay, I've been doing it about 10 years now, trying to build a better bike over the 10 years. And I think the things we're currently riding are pretty good. I guess I started thinking that I've had a fleet of upright bikes, and I started thinking, I think there's something better here. So I kind of took a fundamental look at what a bike was all about. All right, and I came to the conclusion that the first thing I need to do was just really effectively integrate the rider, kind of like the recumbents do. But that integration needed to include responsiveness, okay, with the bicycle, control of the bicycle, and then efficiency, which is speed, okay, comfort and safety are all critically important. Today, I'm just going to talk about speed, but they're all critical. Right. Part of speed is applying power, and as I explained before, the G4 is really designed to allow full body engagement. Okay, you certainly pedal as a primary means of propulsion, but you occasionally need to accelerate and occasionally need to climb, and you want to do that with some alacrity. I mean, you want to really be able to go when you want to go. So being able to supplement pedal propulsion with hand power is really useful, and again, it really adds to the whole ride experience. The other thing is you got to ignore the UCI constraints. Okay, they came on 100 years ago or whatever it was, and for legitimate reasons said, "Hey, we're not going to let recumbents play." Okay, we want to have a sport, and sport is got to have people and not advanced technology. This is in 1930, is my interpretation of what they said. So they put a real crimp, in my view, on bicycle technology development that we're still living with. All right, the UCI made all bikes uprights and tried to make all of us riders racers, and I'm pretty sure that racing is not me. And again, today I want to talk about speed and efficiency, and again, all together, that's part of the simple pleasures of a bike ride. I had to include these two photos. Okay, the lower one is me on the G4 at Waterford at I guess it was last year, 2021, and one of the races, and the guy behind me is just full on. I mean, he's got beautiful form on that bicycle, which I wished I could hold on an upright these days. But I wanted to know, is he fast, or am I fast, or what is the story? And then on the right is my wife Peggy on her fifth prototype that I built at the Seagull Century. I think this was last year as well. It's a beautiful ride with a lot of people, and again, it just kind of illustrates that the bikes we're having a lot of fun with them. Okay, this is what I'm going to talk about today. The approach to collecting data, and we'll talk about that in some depth. And it's not perfect, but I think it's good. The scope I want to spend some time with because that shows the different bikes. And then, as I said, for each bike, okay, there's a data page. There's 10 bikes altogether being compared here. It has a photo of the bike as tested, all right? Then I include kind of the key specifications of the bike, mostly things that determine the frontal area, like bar width and crank height above the ground and seat back angle for recumbents and things like that, because frontal area, I think, is very important. Also talk to the tires. Okay, rolling resistance is an important aspect of speed, and you don't want the tires to eat too much power. Drivetrain friction is relevant, so I talked to that for just a minute, and of course I include weight. I'm a little embarrassed about the weight of the bikes I'm building. They're all straight gauge steel tubing, but I'm working on that. Anyway, weather is included. Now, I wished I could control the weather on these tests. I didn't. Next best thing is to include the weather data so we can see what was going on. There were a couple of times when the wind was very high, and I threw trials out as a result of that, but the data are there. There's a summary result for all of the information. There's detailed data logs, which I'll talk more about too, which are represented in graphical form. And then when I go through each of the charts, the 10 pages, I'm going to just kind of show the whole table, okay, the whole chart, but I'm going to focus on the comments. And then in the last 5 or 6 charts of the presentation, we'll go through some comparisons. And again, the results, the comparisons, and the conclusions are just what we'll talk about in the last 6 charts. And again, the bumper sticker, how fast the different types of bicycles. I mean, separating the rider from the bike, okay, by maintaining constant power, I think is the best way I can come up with to answer that. Okay, this is the approach. 200 watts, okay. It's a lot of power. I'm a big guy, so I it's kind of my performance cruise power. There's a lot of riding going on here, so I needed to do something that I could kind of hold. So I wanted more power to show kind of the differences between the bikes a little more if I could. But each time I tried to average 200 watts over the entire course. Now, that doesn't mean I held a steady 200 watts. Going up the hills, I applied more power, and down the hills, a little bit less power. And then towards the end, I had to finagle it to get it as close to 200 as I could. Actual results are shown, okay, in the data logs of how power was applied there. If somebody understands these data logs better than I do, I'm all ears, because I think a future, I need to spend some more time looking at these, but it's there, and I would appreciate community input on any of that. The course was paved. Okay, it's a local course. It's a Strava segment, which really helped in collecting the data and doing quick analysis of the data. The route is shown to the right there. It's called the race team training loop. Okay, starting at the Arctic Circle. There's a little inset there, just to the right of the title, and it shows that the elevation is rolling. And I'll show that on each of the data pages again. About 325 feet of climbing, as best I can tell, okay, across the entire portion of the entire 8.56 miles. Of course, there's no net elevation gain or loss because it's a loop. And I also chose to use a loop because it as best I could, reduced the effect of wind. Anyway, stayed on the drops as much as I could, okay, for the drop bar bikes to reduce the funnel area and make those bikes go as fast as I could. And data was collected using a Garmin Power Pedals, Garmin Connect software, Strava software, and then Training Peaks software. Okay. Well, this is a pretty important chart, and I want to spend a little bit of time on that because everything else is referenced to these 10 bikes. The first 4, the Trek 930 mountain bike, okay, is item A. The Surly Long Haul Trucker, item B. The Trek 5500 race bike is C. And then the Bridgestone RB1 steel race bike is item D. Now, this is kind of my personal set of bikes that I think I bought each one of these things brand new. Come to think of it, that mountain bike is probably 30 years old, and the RB1, the Bridgestone, is about the same age, and the Trek isn't. It's still representative of a current bike, but it's not brand new, but it's near and dear to me, and they all run perfectly. So I think they were good representatives of race bikes. Now, item E is a Rand Stratus 700. I bought that as a frame and fork about a year ago, I guess, from Rands. Very, very pleasant to deal with those folks out there. They fixed me up with the pieces I needed to make things fit me. But I haven't ridden that a lot, all right? And it's kind of like the P38 Lightning, which is item F. I bought that used locally a year or so ago, and actually haven't done too much at all to that. It came with good old components on it, actually 27-inch rear tire as opposed to a 700C, and I guess about a 17-inch front tire on it. So I ran that as it was. And I don't know about the rolling resistances on those tires, but it seemed to go pretty well. G, you've seen before. That's the G4 bike, the prototype number 3. I've got that set up now as sort of my gravel bike. I've got 44 millimeter tires on it and a little bit lower gearing, and it's wonderful on the back roads, which is my idea of mountain biking is riding on a back road, and that's the bike I use to do it. H is the kind of the bike I use probably more than anything and any other. Just for almost everything, including club rides and routine rides and running back and forth and picking stuff up with the pack in the back. Now I and J are new bikes. Okay, they're I designed and built these last year. And actually had a chance to race them at Sebring last year, which was fun. But they're moving bottom bracket bikes. Okay, they have indirect steering. All right, which is pretty important, and a vertical steering axis. All right, all set up to optimize hand power input and speed too, for that matter. Those bikes are actually patent pending, but I've also got some aero stuff on these things, and I've been fussing with that. And aerodynamics is a really complicated subject, and I can spend forever on that. And I've decided it's just too much to work with right now. But these are showing kind of what I've done with it and showing the results to some degree. And I'm not currently working that, but it's an awfully interesting topic. And in fact, I've been sharing some of this online the last couple of weeks ago, and it's again a very interesting topic. Okay, the detailed results are shown on the lower left of that chart, and I'll get to that on the next page, I think. But these are the 10 bikes that I'm going to look at the speed on. This is the first of the 10 data pages, and I'm going to go through this one pretty carefully just so everybody gets the lay of the land. And then the next 9, I'm just going to talk to the comments on it. All of the charts are arranged the same, so they're easier to kind of understand. The photograph is of the bicycle as ridden, okay? Moving just below that are the summary results. This was done on the 6th of October. The average was 17.8 miles an hour, and the elapsed time for the 0.56 mile course was 28.49, or 28 minutes and 49 seconds. All right. The weather to the right you see was 72 and beautiful with 2.9 mile an hour winds from the west, which is probably a tough position because it's a headwind one way and tailwind the other. But anyway, below that are the bike mechanicals. All right, the weights is always important. Bar width, seat height, and crankset height. Okay, kind of get to the frontal area of it. Tires do the rolling resistance and then the gearing. Now, in this case, the upper right shows the data logs. Okay, this is Strava analysis of this. Now, a problem I want to point out, okay, in this is the numbers to the left of the data log. For example, the one on the top left is 200 watts, okay, which was my target power input. And you can see as the chart goes to the right, over the 8.5 miles, power varied quite a lot, okay, in those 8.5 miles, mostly because, as you'll see from the bottom of that chart, the terrain varied a fair amount. Like I say, I didn't pedal on the downhill, so you see the cadence and the power both drop off. And I did pedal on the uphill, so the power was back up again. Now, an issue and a known problem with Strava is the power measurement is not real accurate there. So what I did is I went back and updated each of the power numbers, okay, because it is important. What I used is the actual readings. I was watching power as I was riding, of course. So the Garmin gave me a real-time readout, and it showed 200 watts as I was crossing the line as a lap average for the segment. The other thing is training peaks. Okay, I correlated a lap with the Strava segment. So the training peaks gave me a lap average power to double check the power number. And that's consistent with the 200 there too. You'll see there's a little bit of variation from trial to trial within a watt or two, but I think that's within the noise of everything else. One last thing I'll talk about in detail there is the heart rate. Okay, I went ahead and included that. The beats per minute, 147 beats per minute is what this one was. And it was pretty constant through the whole trial, as heart rate tends to be. But the numbers varied a lot, okay, from trial to trial on what the heart rate was. Now, I attributed that just to my state of freshness or fatigue while doing the ride. You know, the numbers were a little higher when I'm tired and a little lower when I'm fresh. But I just wonder if there's more to it than that. I wonder if there's some stress associated with riding the different bikes that maybe is overlaid on that. It's more than I can talk about today, but it's something I'd like to know more about. Again, insights hidden in all of the detailed data is kind of what I'd like to know more about. But again, that's we'll see how that comes out. Here, I did a second trial, looking at the comments. The second comment down is high tailwind trial was 16 seconds faster. Okay, I didn't use that trial, but it was pretty consistent. Okay, 16 seconds is not a lot when you're looking at almost half an hour. So I was encouraged by the consistency trial to trial, not saying that they were all that close to ground truth, but I just, more to that later. This bike had knobbed tires, okay, but it had a ridge, so the rolling resistance wasn't terrible on it. And the one thing is I found this bike without drops far more comfortable than the other drop bar bikes, which I think says more about me than anything else. Okay, second data chart is, this is the Surly long haul trucker. And now this is probably my newest upright bike. I had a Cannondale touring bike for 30 years that I just absolutely wore out riding back and forth to work every day. And I had to buy this for a trip when I noticed a crack in the frame on that old Cannondale, which had probably 100,000 miles on it. So this is representative, though, of a touring and commuting bike, and I've ridden this thousands of miles as well. Here you can see all the categories are the same: the performance during the trial, the weather, the bike characteristics, the data logs and averages in the upper right, and then the comments here. One thing of note is I put lightweight tires on this. They're 44s again, okay, but the rolling resistance on those is really pretty good, unlike maybe some heavier wide tires. Again, I hadn't ridden this bike in about a year when I started doing this testing, but I commuted my entire life on it and thought it was always very comfortable. I was aghast at trying to stay on the drops on this bike for the 25 or 30 minutes. You know, pain in the normal places, and I guess that's sort of a classic recumbent critique of upright bikes, but it really came home to me in this particular test. Okay, this is my Trek racing bike. Again, it was just as uncomfortable, if not more so, than I found the Surly. But this bike was a lot lighter. At 22 pounds, it was noticeably lighter. But I found that I wasn't coasting as much. I found that I was pedaling more than I do on the recumbents. The other thing, kind of going hand in hand with that, the comfort bed, was just visibility. Okay, now visibility goes both ways. Okay, to be safe, you need visibility. All right, visibility means you need to be able to see around you, and other people need to be able to see you. Well, I religiously ride these days with strobes front and rear. All right, so that people can see me. On the recumbents, okay, the head up and looking around is really good for visibility. I didn't appreciate that until I tried to look around in the drops on this bike. I had a really good view of my rear axle and my front axle, but not so much as to where I was going. So I'd forgotten how big a deal visibility was. Going hand in hand with that is I'm sort of a nut about mirrors on bicycles. This one had bar end mirrors, which I always thought were pretty good on a bike. All of my upright bikes had mirrors. But compared to the mirrors on the recumbents, they were just awful, not of the same class. And I think that was more of having to drop or move my head, okay, to see the mirror. Whereas on the recumbent bikes, they're right on line of sight, so you get kind of a constant view of everything in front of you and things behind you. Again, when you're worried about cars coming up behind you, it really takes away from the ride. And I was surprised at how big a difference that made to me. Okay, this is the RB1. This bike with the disc rear wheel and the old Spinergy front wheel, which I bought new way back when, was slightly faster than the Trek in these trials. It was 3 seconds difference, okay, which is, I'm sure, within the margin of error. But I wanted to compare the recumbents against a good race bike, okay, as a baseline. So I took this. It's got slightly narrower handlebars, and again, the aero wheels made it, I think, a little faster. All right, again, pretty good tires on this bike, and the tires were the same on all the bikes, as well as I could. I mean, the 44s were the same on the two bikes, and the narrower tires, slightly different, but the same type tires. So rolling resistance should have been pretty comparable, except for the lightning, which I've mentioned. Okay, this is the Rans. I bought this, built it up last year, as I mentioned. It was more of a touring recumbent, I think, is how I would characterize this. Pretty comfortable. The legs are, the feet are down like on a G4 bike. You know, the rider's fairly vertical. It was the slowest of the recumbents, okay, because it was blocking a lot of air. All right, my presented area was fairly high in that seating posture, but it was still okay, pretty much consistent with the race bikes. So I mean, it was the slowest recumbent, but it was still pretty fast. All right. Here, okay, and you can see the detailed specs on the right. The front tire was a Kojak, which was a pretty good tire, I think. And I had the Continental on the rear of that bike. Okay, this is the Lightning. Here, the pedals are elevated, which is sort of a big deal to me. I find the starting and stopping a little more difficult. I remember 10 years ago when I first rode recumbents, that was kind of a big deal. All right, now it's a minor thing that I kind of have to work with, but I still find elevated pedals less to my liking, okay, than pedals like that were on the Rans at the preceding picture. The elevated pedals do cut the percent area and make the bike a little bit faster. Although here the seat recline was fixed, and I couldn't tilt it back as much as I might have liked, which probably hurt increased the presented area just a little bit too. This bike was light. Okay, I think it was the lightest bike except for the two upright race bikes. And again, that was sort of nice to to start with, but it gets drowned out by the aerodynamic benefits of or the aerodynamic issues. Okay. Next is the bike that I've shown before. This is the gravel bike I mentioned. Again, the wide tires didn't seem to hurt the speed on this bike. An issue with these G4s is they've got dual chains, okay? A right chain and a left chain to take power from the pedal chain ring up around the tire and back to the front wheel. You know, every mechanical thing has friction, all right? And I've been wondering what the penalty was for the friction on that. I guess I don't know. I assume it's a couple of percent, 2 or 3 more or less. I just don't know. But it's a lot less power loss, okay, than the aerodynamic power loss of a larger presented area. And here the seat is back to about 40 degrees, something like that, and the feet are low, but not too much higher than the seat. So the presented area is not bad. And this configuration, I'll talk more about speed in a minute. Okay, next chart is the again my primary G4. This has got 32 millimeter tires, which is the biggest difference, and I keep a pack on that in a rack just to make it handy. Here, I noticed that the heart rate, my heart rate was a lot lower. Again, I assume I was fresher that day, but maybe I was just most comfortable on this bike. I don't know. Again, I did a second trial in different wind conditions, and it was within 7 seconds. So again, really good repeatability here. Not saying that all cases are like that, but the couple of points have been good. I was surprised that this bike wasn't faster than the yellow bike I just showed you, but I don't know, maybe just within the noise, or maybe that pack is costing more than I thought in terms of aerodynamics. This bike, okay, and all of the G4 configurations there's so much going on in the front end there between the pedaling and the steering and the hand power input, that it seems to give enough control such that an aero disc wheel is just not a problem. I routinely ride this bike with that. So I you know, it's one of those things that just kind of happens with this configuration. Okay, next is P6.5. This is the racer that again this is new as of this year. It was done just in time for Sebring this year. I think I was like 4.5 hours, okay, on the 100 miles on this bike, and which is a record for me. So I was pretty pleased with it. I built this in 2 different configurations. Okay, the first had the crank set directly on the steering axis. Okay, that is, there was no offset between the steering axis and the crank set, as you see it there, to maximize hand power input. Had some practical problems, so I changed it to the configuration you see here. So this is prototype 6.5, reflecting the different front fork on it. Again, the frontal area is as low as I could make it on this bike. A little bit of streamlining. I don't know how effective that is, the tail box, for example. But this one also allows a front disc wheel on it. Critique on this bike is this has got 2 things going against it. First, my feet are high, okay, and that really impedes my starts and stops, okay. So riding in traffic and things like that it takes a little more work with this bike and for example, the lighting than I would like. The other thing too that I noticed on this is being so nearly horizontal really seems to affect my agility. Now, I'm not able to, for example, do U-turns in the road. I don't know whether that's just me or whether that's inherent to that reclined position or not, but it's something I want to know more about. It's very comfortable underway, though. I mean, once you, for example, at Sebring, I mean, long straight shots. That's a really comfortable position. Okay. This is P6.5 with some additional fairings. Here I was trying all I could do to reduce the frontal area and streamline as best I could. I changed the bar to just a short straight bar, okay, which made controlling even more difficult. The tail fin hoped to mitigate some of the turbulence behind my helmet. Used the same tail box, and then under the seat, I used foam and tape and contrived a sort of a fairing there to smooth that airflow between those two disc wheels, and a little bit of smoothing around the frame on the front. The bike was a little faster, as we'll see. I didn't like all the tape and foam on the bike, so I took that off for normal use, and I went back to the wider drop bars on the preceding variant, which is actually what I'm using on a regular basis now. Those are the 10 charts. Okay, I went through a lot of data. Okay, I'll post them on g4bikes.com so that people, if they want to look at them, folks can take a close look at them, and I'm receptive to any comments. Okay, that anybody might have. Okay, now let's get to the kind of the heart of the deal, and let's look at the differences. Okay, these are the 10 bikes that we just went through. All right, this is the ranked, okay, in descending order of speed. First is the speed in mile per hour averaged over the lap, the segment, as reported by both Strava and Training Peaks, and consistent pretty well with what I was saying in real time. The time is probably a more accurate measure, okay, between each one of these bikes, in minutes and seconds. And then just to show the power input, these are the averages, okay, for each iteration. Not all exactly 200 watts, but close. And it's just, I think, within reasonable variation. Now, I'm real interested in being able to say to somebody, they'll ask, how fast is that bike? And yeah, it's hard to answer a question like that. But this chart kind of gives a measure for it, okay? And there's some pretty interesting results there, all right? The G4 race, for example, was like on the order of 20% faster than the baseline Bridgestone RB1 in this trial, okay, in this testing. Like I say, if I was in a different environment, or I don't know, but here there's a point estimate of how fast this bike is, okay, compared to the other ones. The fully fared or more fully fared racer was not a lot different than the regular racer. Again, attesting to how difficult it is to really work aerodynamics. But it's still, it's 0.4 of a mile an hour difference is non-trivial. Okay, the G4 gravel bike, the yellow bike with the wide tires, okay, was surprisingly fast. Okay, at 20.3, it was faster than the red bike, which again surprised me. And they're 7 and 9% faster than the baseline, on the order of 10% as opposed to the 20% for the racer. The P38 was the fastest of the two commercial recumbents, and it was almost 5% faster than the baseline upright race bike. You see the Trek 5500, the carbon race bike, and the Bridgestone RB1 steel race bike were essentially the same speed, okay, within a few seconds of one another. And the Rans was exactly the same way there. Now we get to the Surly, and it was about 2% slower. And then the Trek 930 mountain bike was about 2% slower yet. So this is kind of my mental model. Okay, this is kind of how I think of and compare the different bike speeds. Now, the next couple charts will talk more about this and put it graphically to which I find it easier to think about things when I can see a picture. But these are the 4 upright bikes. Okay, you can see the table there, the Trek 930, the Surly Long Haul Trucker, the Trek 5500 Carbon Racer, and the Bridgestone RB1 Steel Racer with the disc wheels on it. I always thought that my race bikes were way faster than my touring bike, and that my touring bike was faster than the mountain bike. Here, looking at how flat that line is, I was really overestimating those differences, or a little bit of difference means a lot. Maybe it's a better way of looking at that. but there was about 4/10 of a difference, mile per hour, between the two, and what was it, 8/10 of a mile per hour between the race bike and the mountain bike. So that adds up over a 100-mile ride, but it didn't seem like a lot to me in looking at the data here. The comment I think is worth a minute to talk to. This whole thing gave me a chance to ride a bunch of bikes in quick succession and draw some conclusions about how they overall how they were. And speed's not the only important thing about a bicycle. Okay, I was again surprised at how uncomfortable I was on the uprights. Now I had ridden for a while, and I'm sure that I guess if I was riding them again continuously, I'd get adjusted to these things. All right, but I begin to wonder now why I would want to. And again, the other aspect I mentioned here is the visibility. Okay, recumbents are reputed for having poor visibility. Well, again, your ability to see around you and behind you on a recumbent with good mirrors is much better than I found on the uprights, and I think that's important too. Okay. Now, these are the recumbent speeds. Now, these recumbents are a pretty wide range of configurations. Okay, it was a wide range of uprights, but the recumbents are even more widely ranging. And each one of the 4 different recumbent configurations kind of have different speed groups. You can see the Rans and the P38 have 7/10 of a mile an hour difference between them, which is kind of consistent between the mountain bike and the race bike, the touring bike and the race bike, maybe. The G4 Sport, and the G4 Gravel are pretty close. Again, the Gravel being a little faster, which, as I mentioned, was a little bit surprising. And then the racing configuration, which makes compromises in terms of rideability, but it's a lot faster. So here, again, speed's not the only thing that was important. Okay. Now, this time, I really want to talk about overall bike handling. Okay. And the responsiveness and being able to accelerate and being able to climb and things like that. Again, getting used to these bikes probably matters, but there were pretty dramatic differences between these bikes and of course, between the uprights. I'd really like to be able to come up with a way where I could fairly, quantify those differences, and explain them. And it kind of gets to the overall ride experience and the simple pleasure of a bike ride that I think all kind of is enmeshed in this. But again, that's beyond the scope of what I think we can talk about today and what I know about. Okay, this is a comparison. This is the last 2 charts both plotted together, and it kind of shows dramatically that the recumbents are faster than the race bikes and are the upright bikes, and kind of a lot faster. The difference in speed between the recumbents is more than that between the differences in the uprights. And again, the uprights are all faster. I think that frontal area has a whole lot to do with this. Again, I don't think the rolling resistance and I don't think the mechanical friction losses within the bikes are making much of a difference on this. I don't think the weight had a lot of effect here either. I don't know. But my opinion is that it's all about the frontal area. And the other thing too, though, the closing comment there is if my chuck had been better on all of the upright bikes, maybe they could have all been a little faster, but I couldn't. And I don't know how much difference that would make. Finally, I included in this the bikes that I have. And I bought a couple of bikes just so I could do something like this. I'd really love to put some trikes, into this mix. I'd like to ride them over that course and see how they compare. A velomobile would be a wonderful thing to include. And even some of the other high racers, I think would be very interesting. So if anybody has one that they want to lend me, I'm all for it. Just briefly, looked at a wide range of upright and recumbents. The uprights varied slightly. The recumbents varied a lot. Okay, the recumbents were faster than the uprights. I think frontal area is what's really important there. The rider as well as the bike, and probably mostly rider, offer caution. Okay, the results seem reasonable to me, but they're not based on multiple repetitions, which would have been kind of nice to be able to cancel out some of the weather effects to the extent they creeped in. I don't know how much that creeped in. I don't know how much other errors might have creeped into this. Again, it feels right, but I just don't know. And the multiple iterations and examining all those other errors would be a lot of work that I don't plan to do just now. But if I get any more information on that, I will post it on g4bikes.com. And with that, I'm looking forward to the discussion of this and answering any questions that I can.
Wow, Ron, that's great. Okay, so we appreciate all the hard work that you did in creating those slides and the well, almost like lab work with those bikes. You took it outside to your outdoor lab and checked them all out. So, Ron, thank you so much for giving us the comparison there.
My pleasure, Gary. Thank you.
All right, guys, and there is Ron Thompson ensconced in his office. Ron, that was a fascinating presentation, and we've got lots of interaction on live chat, as you might guess. Thanks for the hard work. That was great. I think people really appreciate that. Anything before we go to questions and comments? Anything you wanted to add after watching yourself?
Well, I enjoyed the presentation, actually, Gary. I always kind of wonder how I'm going to come off on something like this, but I enjoyed watching it again, and I hope people find the results useful. It's something I wanted to do, and I got into it, and I thought, I think this is interesting. I think maybe other people might as well. So I called you, and thanks for putting it on. Sure,
of course. All right, let's jump into it here. First of all, let's see. This is from the UK. This is who says, hi from the UK. When will the G4 website be fully running? I'll make a note to visit it. So you told me, you said something about it's kind of in progress. What's the ETA on having a more fully fleshed out website?
Well, the website is a little bit like a G4 bike. It's never done. Okay. There's a lot of good stuff though already on the website. I looked at it this morning, and there's a couple little typos and some small errors like that. But there's a lot of really good information, I think, on the website right now. The one thing I would just cue you to though is that there's a menu on the homepage. And there's 5 or 6 sub pages behind that menu that you click on. Like you might not notice it, is what I'm saying. So that's where all the detailed information is. These charts are there on the, I guess it's called a speed comparison page. The charts that I presented back in July of 2021, which kind of introduced the G4 bikes, are there on the G4 introduction page. So there's a presentation there that I gave to the International Cycle History Conference, back in July of this year, which met out in Indianapolis, which was kind of a whole nother interesting conversation. But there's a presentation there that I think has got a lot of stuff. So answer is I think the website is interesting now.
Okay. And we're going to have a link to that in the description, of course, so folks can check it out right now as it is. So, all right. Our buddy Mike Mowat was contributing in the chat quite a bit. First of all, let's see. He says, kudos for achieving a repeatable 200-watt average. It's very hard to keep power steady and, of course, with elevation gain or loss. And that's just kind of a comment, but he also has had a chance apparently to do some of his own testing, which doesn't surprise me, Mike. He says, my own testing, about 250 watts on a 5.4 mile flat island loop on a hot day, 21.4 miles an hour on the upright cross bike with 38 millimeter knobby tires, 24.4 miles per hour on the upright Cervelo time trial bike, wow, and 28.4 on a Morsiglio M1 low racer. So Your comments on Mike's performance there and his thoughts.
It's really interesting, Mike. You know, as you know, there's a lot of variables in that. Okay, using 250 watts as opposed to 200 watts makes a big difference. A flat course versus a hilly course makes a lot of difference. Let's see, your body, okay, versus my body makes a lot of difference. You know, I don't know what your square inches of presented area are, but I suspect they're different than my square inches of presented area. So it all kind of melds together. You know, there are online pieces of software, okay, where people have done some nice work, okay, where you can put in all these parameters, including the weather and your coefficient of drag in your frontal area, and it'll come out with power versus speed relationships. Those are all good if you know your frontal area and coefficient of drag, but you kind of need a wind tunnel for some of that. Then it's still interesting, okay. But the whole point is that there's a lot of things going on there, and what I wanted to do is put a stake in the ground again for my own use as much as anything else. Keeping as much of that consistent as possible, which is why I did 10 bikes over the same course and at the same power. So it's all interesting. It just kind of it's hard to assimilate all the information.
Okay, of course. All right, Mike Smith has a kind of specific question there. Notice there were some really major power drops on the Road Bike 1. Is there an explanation that you might have, or did you notice that?
I suspect what he's saying is that when I was going downhill, I stopped pedaling just because I was spun out. You know, the bike was going fast. It was a reasonably aerodynamic bike, and there was just no need of trying to put more power on the downhills when I was already going fast, because that power could more effectively be used getting me back up the hills. So I think that's probably what he's saying, but I'm not sure. If it's something else, let me know.
All right. And let's see. Marco Ruga from Italy. Hi, Marco. I'm glad that you're with us today. It shows your beats per minute, your heart rate is lower on recumbents, and there was a little bit about that in the chat. Have you something to say about why that would be?
No, I wondered that too. Okay, the best explanation I had is kind of how I explained it. Best I can tell, you know, I guess classically, your heart rate varies depending on your level of rest, okay, your level of fatigue, that sort of thing. For example, late in a ride, you do a century ride, okay, and if you're tired and you're trying to put out power, your heart rate's going up and your power is going down, and it's just your body is tired. And that's kind of what I attributed it to. But I wonder if there might be more. You know, if a bike is not comfortable, okay, or if I'm stressed somehow by maybe traffic or by the bike or something, I wonder if that has sort of an overlay of increasing your heart rate or decreasing your heart rate if you're very comfortable. Again, that detailed data, and there's a lot there that I think might be hidden and I don't fully understand. As a matter of fact, on the website, g4bikes.com, the charts, the last, there's 3 backup charts that I added where I took each one of those detailed data logs and put them side by side to begin to look at those differences to see if I could get some insights from it. But I don't know, and if anyone in the community can shed some light on that, I'm all ears.
All right. Next, we have Mark Harris, 42 pounds. My trike is under 30 pounds. Well, there was a bit of discussion on that also. You did mention about your frames being steel. What are your thoughts about all this weight stuff?
Like I said, I was already embarrassed with that, so that didn't help. But no, seriously, these are experimental prototypes. Okay, they are not optimized for weight, and on top of that, I've got them set up with everything that I'm comfortable with on the road: mirrors and lights and tools and tubes and racks and packs. And in case of the red bike, which I think was the 42 pounder, those carbon disc wheels are heavy too. So I specifically sacrifice a little extra weight for a little less drag, and which I think is a pretty good trade. Maybe not, I don't know. But yeah, my next project is I think going to be carbon. All right, I you can kind of see in the background. I've got my carbon shop set up, my composite shop set up, and I'd like to start building some composite frames and forks. It's just there's a lot of things I'd like to do, and kind of converging on one and committing is the question. But I think I'm ready to start doing that actually tomorrow. It's not a quick job building a carbon frame and carbon fork for the G4s. The concentric G4 configuration is the one I think I'm going to build. But I think that's a really good way to get a lot of the weight out. I hope to get into the maybe high 20s somewhere and roadworthy, something like that. Peggy's bike is a little smaller, a little lighter. It's in the mid 30s, I think. So the weight can be worked.
Absolutely. All right. Our mutual friend, Jim Parker from Cruise Bike, has been on the chat. Hello, Jim. We're really glad that you're with us today. So the CDA Bike Plus Rider is the key measurement for relating power and speed. Road surface, air density, rider bike weight are important factors that must be factored. Also test on non-windy days. So that's some of his advice. So what do you have to say to that? Nobody argues with Jim, and he shouldn't.
I say first, hi, Jim. Good to hear from you. It was nice talking with you down at Sebring. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. No doubt about it. I recognized, I think, most of that going into this, and I recognized that there was some variability in the wind, and I recognized that there were going to be some uncertainties associated with the wind variation, because I couldn't wait, to get perfect test conditions for all 10 bikes. So going into that, I thought that I could still do something useful, and still get it done in a reasonable amount of time. So that's what I'm presenting. But I absolutely agree with you that those are key. And if I was really dedicated and had a lot of time, I'd go back to one of those online calculators and try to normalize the data by looking at the speeds achieved and the weather conditions there, and come back out CDAs and CDAs would be the right number, and begin to correct for some of that. But I think what there is here is useful, but there's always more that could be done.
For sure. All right. So, I mean, you make a point of talking about this being a flat course. There were some inclines and stuff, but what about climbing on the recumbent versus the upright? This is something, of course, that is important to everyone who rides recumbents. Give us your thoughts on that.
Well, I'm way biased first. The G4 bikes with the hand power input, and the cruise bike too, for to some degree, although I haven't got a lot of time on one of those, really allows you to engage the body. That makes all the difference in acceleration and climbing. In fact, I assert, and I think that the G4 hand power input allows you to accelerate and climb better than an upright bike. It's instant. You don't have to stand up first to engage as you do on an upright bike. And I think the mechanics are actually a little bit better. That's probably a heretical thing to say, but I believe that. So the moving bottom bracket bikes, I think, are just far superior to the other recumbent configurations that I've had a chance to work with. And I want to caveat that again by all the things I've said. I don't have experience to the same degree on all these other bikes, but for group rides, for example, where you're doing accelerations and climbs and things like that, and you got to jump when the group jumps, it's just so nice to be able to put your upper body into it, react to the pedal forces, add extra torque to the front crankset, and actually even there's as I explained, I think back in July, you can literally as you'd stand and rock an upright back and forth into the pedal stroke, okay, on the G4s, you can literally pull the crankset through the handlebars, okay, into the pedal thrust and add significant wattage. You know, it's not unusual to see, you know, I'll cruise, I'll be riding in an aggressive ride at say 300 watts, 350 watts, something like that, and there'll be a jump, okay, and you know, I'll jump in 500 to 600 watts, okay, by literally pulling on the handlebars. It's hard to judge how much of that is hand power input and how much of it is foot power enhanced input. But my assessment is that the hand power input, I can do that on the G4s, but I can't do it on the other bikes. The other part of that is when you're fatigued, okay, being able to add hand power, okay, to supplement the foot power input seems to be very helpful. Again, these are my assessments and my opinions and best I can tell, but I wish I could quantify it better. There are chances to do that, and I'm working on that, but that's another story.
All righty. Now we had a couple questions here about wheel and wheel sizes. So Luftschwimmer says, what wheel size does the G4 bike have? What would be the advantage of that special drive with the crank in the middle of the front wheel that you have? Well, you've already talked a little bit about the hand power, but let's address the wheel sizes if we could.
Well, before we skip past
Yeah,
that, you know, the hand power input is key. Okay, that's what these bikes are all about. And when I briefed presented to the International Cyclohistory Conference, okay, I made the assertion that the G4 is a fundamentally different kind of bike, okay, because you could put hand power in to supplement foot power into the crankset. So that's awfully important about these bikes. But the second thing about having the cranks, okay, in the front wheel is that ergonomically, recumbents have always been kind of conflicted, okay, because you really kind of want on a convenient bicycle configuration for your crankset to be kind of in the same place your front axle is for bicycle balance and keeping the wheelbase reasonable and that sort of thing. So, and like I said, I really like the feet down, okay, as opposed to the feet up, okay, which above the front wheel on the high racers, on my P6, for example, up high like that, it's fast, but it's in terms of overall rideability, I find I don't like it as well, okay? So putting the crankset in the front axle has a lot of ergonomic benefit as well. Okay, second question I think there was the wheel size.
Well, we've got a couple things about wheel size here, and this really, so Day Tracker wants to compare to the 16-inch wheels of a Green Speed Aero. That might throw your results off. Well, you said that you do want to test trike, so I think that would be an important addition to what you want to do here. But
Sure.
yeah, talk about maybe what what your thoughts on wheel size and the trike aspect would be.
Couple of things, a lot of good points there, and you know, that's sort of what's going on is there's so many things, and just being able to sort them out a little bit and talk about them one at a time, just to divide and conquer is awfully important. But wheel size, first 700Cs are what I'm using on the G4s. They're convenient. Historically, that's about the right size, so it must be something to that. But tires are available for it as well. I've got some 650Bs, okay, which are like 27.5-inch. I think a little bit smaller. That I'm going to use on my next set of bikes just to try. I'll make sure that I can use both 700C and 650B with them, just to make them a little more compact, maybe accelerate a little bit better. But I think it's going to be kind of in the noise. The 650B, I think, might be better with the really big tires, okay, the 42, 44, 48 millimeter tires that I want to be able to use on my high performance, my sport bike, okay, if you will. to allow it to go, let one bike kind of be my gravel bike and my road bike and everything. One bike does it all, okay, is kind of what I'm going after there. And I think the tire technology has gotten to the point where you can kind of do that, okay? And by that, I mean the rolling resistance is reasonable, okay? And now that gets to the 16s and the 20s, okay? I limited experience there, but rolling resistance, I think, and maybe a little bit wind resistance, which is going to be a much more secondary issue, I think. Rolling resistance is going to be the key. And I think that for a 20-inch or a 16-inch wheel, your rolling resistance is going to be a little higher, okay, depending on the road you're on, okay. If you've got a normal paved road with, bumps in it, you're going to be a little bumpier, and that's going to cost you a little more power. So those wheels are going to be a little bit slower. I think that's not the key, okay, to speed in the test that we just saw. Okay, it's aerodynamics frontal area, but it's an issue. So I wonder if that gets to the. I wonder if that answers the question.
Okay. I think it does. You can't answer the question until you do the actual test, but I think your thoughts on that were great. So, all right, John Paul Wood says, great data. I would be interested to see how a cruise bike or an M5 would compare. Basically, back into that aspect of trying more bikes, which, guys, just send Ron the bikes, and then obviously he's the man, so he'll be able to. So, but thank you, John Paul. That's a great suggestion. Okay, well, so Desi Haha says, what about semi-recumbents, like maybe crank forwards or that type of thing? We haven't really talked about those. Any ideas?
Let me just think for a second about that. A crank forward is an interesting configuration. Okay, it's sort of. I don't know much about them. I've never tried to ride one. I've seen advertisements on those where you can actually stand up on those as well. So it gets at, to some degree, what I think is a fundamental limitation of recumbents is you can't fully engage your upper body by standing, okay, which is what the G4 is all about, okay, giving you an alternate way forward there, using your upper body through the fork-mounted crankset. I think the crank forward bikes would fit somewhere between the uprights and the recumbents we saw. I think it all comes down to, its frontal area, and then the tires, and then the drivetrain. And crank forward bikes should work pretty well like that.
Okay. And again, Chauncey Young from New York City. Thank you, Chauncey. So great presentation, interesting comparisons. It'd be great to include trikes and velomobiles, which you mentioned. So send them your velomobile, Chauncey. It would be interesting to also see maybe a longer route with more hills. So I guess maybe you could address briefly the flat, slightly rolling route that you did. Any advantage, do you think, to adding some hills or making this a longer test? Practicality, I guess, would be an issue as well. So,
well, I think it's again, what issue are you trying to get at? Okay, I picked this course because I thought it was reasonably representative of terrain that at least I ride a lot. It's typical terrain is what I tried to get at. And I wanted to know typically what the speed differences were between these different bikes. If your question is which bike climbs better, okay, then you want to set up kind of a different test. I think. I think you want to do something where maybe it's just a hill climb. Okay. If you really want to get at max speeds, as Mike Mowat kind of talked about in his 5.5 mile course there, I tried to find something dead flat. Okay. There are terrain pieces that are. I mean, you ride 100 miles and you don't vary more than a few hundred feet. That would tell you something different. But I think that, what I've got here is sort of a good piece of terrain for a first cut.
Absolutely. All right. Kind of back to the weight question, you sort of answered this in terms of going to carbon, but Mark Harris says Honda tried magnesium on a Formula One car. It burns too easily, but for bike components, yeah, you're probably not going to catch fire on any of those bikes, likely. So magnesium is probably not something on your list of materials to work with.
Like I say, I'm aspiring to move to carbon. Okay, but so magnesium, I don't know much about, and I don't think I can add anything to that conversation.
Right. All right, let's finish up. We have two more comments from Jim Parker that are interesting here. Jim says, having test ridden Ron's bikes, I can attest that there is upper body input to torque in the cranks. I could definitely feel it. So that's really good to see. And Jim knows what he's talking about there for sure. We don't probably need to say anything more. And finally here, he says the best aero position for the feet is at the same height as the torso. You don't want your feet sticking down or up into the clean laminar airflow if you want maximum speed. So last aero comment, and thank you, Jim, for participating today. We appreciate it. Ron, what do you think about that?
I fully agree. As a matter of fact, I'd like to add that Jim and I have been back and forth many times on via email primarily, trying to get at the issue of quantifying hand power input, okay, on the moving bottom bracket configuration, and then the optimization of the configuration, okay, for that. All right. For example, like an earlier question was, if you were really interested in choppy terrain with groups of rides that are varying in speed, you really want responsiveness maximized, okay, so that you can really engage hand power and do those real quick jumps and accelerations. All right, that's probably one configuration, okay, of a bike, one set of bike geometry. On the other hand, as Jim is saying there, if your objective is to set speed records, okay, then you want a different configuration, okay, something that over flat terrain, I mean, then you want to do things differently. So it's people, the state of the art is not real well understood, okay, as to what happens when you stand up on an upright bike. As a matter of fact, I've looked at some of the technical literature there and had some people at university send me some papers on measuring hand power input while standing. Okay, and it's not. There's a lot of uncertainty there. So I think what we're talking about is just sort of state of the art, and configuring bicycles to best take advantage of that, recumbent bicycles especially, is what I'm finding awfully interesting. And again, Jim and I think, share a lot of that.
Beautiful. All right. So I think that's going to be where we're going to leave it today. Marco, I think here speaks for the rest of us. Thanks for the nice test. Ron, it's always a pleasure working with you and having you on the show to share your vast knowledge. And I think we're going to do it again. We've talked a bit about that. So, folks, I think we're going to have Ron on fairly regularly here when he can spare the time. And we'll try to keep up with that. So, Ron, thank you so much for being on the Laid Back Bike Report once again.
Well, thank you, Gary. And again, thanks for the opportunity to interact with the community. I really find this of value.
Great. And so do we. So thanks a lot, pal. All right, guys, let's finish up here with our last segment. Nina Paley, as I had talked about in the intro, was with us at CycleCon in Dayton, and she had a chance to ride some bikes and trikes, and Denny had a chance to shoot some video of it, and she narrated these videos. So let's have a look at what she had to say.
So here I am trying a Carver tie glide. This one has a jack shaft, which I found quite interesting, and a belt drive. Because of the belt drive, rather than having a derailleur on the rear, it has an internal hub shifting mechanism. I am quite intrigued by this. All of the Carver all of the Carver demo bikes were very long so that they could accommodate tall riders. You can see that the seat is scooted way up to the front for me. I'm pretty sure that a smaller frame would have handled a bit more sprightlier for me. Nonetheless, This is a great bike. I love the 700 rear 20-inch front configuration. It is very similar to my Easy Racers Tie Rush, which is irreplaceable by Easy Racers, but could be replaced if anything happens to it, God forbid, by one of these tie glides. The track that I'm on here is paved, and I believe the wind is at my back at this point. It was quite windy. The track was less than half a mile long and didn't really give me an idea, for example, of how fast I could go if I were on a long ride. I tried the bikes on both the paved surface and the gravel. Here I am trying the tie glide on the gravel. And I have to say that the gravel here was not too bad. The kind of gravel I am dealing with in central Illinois is worse than this. It would be a lot harder for me to stay stable on gravel in Champaign County, where I live. This part of the track had a tiny bit of grade going up. So that was good for testing traction on these bikes. Zoom, zoom. Wind at my back, zooming along. There was no speedometer on this bike. I would like to know how fast I was actually going. After the jackshaft version, I tried this dual 26 tie glide. I believe this one has the pinion box. I'm not sure. Either way, the drivetrain configurations on these bikes were new to me, and they worked fine. I guess there's a lot of different ways you can make a drivetrain on a bike. It was pretty fun riding through the floor of the event center. It had a really nice floor. Of course, there are all these people standing around. You didn't want to hit them. It's kind of a miracle nobody got hit. And you can see that I am putting my feet down a lot more with the dual 26 bike. That is because the dual 26 configuration has wheel flop. It doesn't steer as easily as a 20-inch front wheel bike. It's manageable. It's a lot easier when you're on a long straight stretch or going around an easy curve. And again, this was another nice bike, also very long. My seat is scooted way up to the front. If I were to buy such a bike, I would have it custom fit to me, so it would be shorter and probably a little bit easier to handle. And here I am coming in for round 2 on the tie glide dual 26, which I did on the gravel. The reason I wanted to test it on gravel is I actually recently bought a used Ranger, Lightfoot Ranger, which is also a dual 26 long wheelbase. And I got it specifically for gravel because the tiny 20-inch front wheel on most long wheelbase bikes has a harder time on the gravel. So a larger wheel in front is better for that. I wouldn't say no to any of these bikes. They are good bikes. Now let's look at the Steintrikes. Oh yes. Whoops. Make this quiet. Here I am test riding a Steintrike Wild One. Again, gliding over the nice smooth floor of the exhibit hall. At this point in the ride, I did not really remember what was special about a Steintrike, so I was just having a trike experience. I do not actually own a trike other than my Velomobile, so trikes are rather novel to me still, even though I've test ridden quite a few. And I found it, a nice, comfy, seemed sort of sprightly trike. Took it out on the paved test track. There I am pedaling around. So yeah, I didn't really remember at this point what was special about Steintrikes, but then I got this explanation about the suspension, which I was not really experiencing prior to this point. So I went to test it out. Let's test the suspension on the uneven ground. So here I am launching off of the pavement, and getting my first taste of Steintrike's Wild One suspension. It's hard to convey how this actually felt rather than how it looked. But you can see that I am smiling, and I am smiling because I did not know such a ride was possible without fat tires. I had always thought that to go off-road, you needed a fat trike or a fat bike. But with these relatively narrow tires, I was able to go all over the place. I was going on and off the road just for fun, just because I could. That was actually, you can't really see from this video, but it's a pretty steep distance between the pavement and the field there. It's not something I would go up and down on my tie rush, for example. But I was just going on and off as much as I could because it was so comfortable and easy. Yeah, I was cutting corners for the sheer joy of it. It just never occurred to me that I could ride wherever I wanted. I'd really like to try one of these where I live in central Illinois because we have some fields that are, shall we say, lumpier than this. And of course we have much more heinous gravel. But I think one of these trikes would be great in my home county. Yeah, it was really a ride unlike any I had experienced before. I would really like to compare speed on pavement versus speed on gnarly surfaces. I don't really know how fast a Steintrike can go. Here I am on gravel. Again, the gravel on the test track was pretty gentle gravel. But this is something I would not have done on a regular trike or bike, going off of the gravel and into the rough, grassy area. And back on the pavement. Of course, why be on pavement when you can go on gravel and grass? Up and down. You can see how smoothly it takes that height difference between the grass and the pavement. And back in the hall. I wanted to try a HASE with a differential because I wanted to experience traction. There's this one little part of the test track where there's gravel and a very slight upgrade, not an actual hill, but I could feel the rear wheels slipping as I went up that hill. That's both on the Carver and also the Steintrike. I'm pretty sure any trike, any tadpole configured trike would have some issues gripping gravel going uphill. Trey told me that a HASE with differential has amazing traction. So I wanted to give that a try. And, great bike or trike, great trike, solid trike, heavy trike. I was not using the battery. Just about every trike at the show had a battery. So I don't know how much weight that added, but I'm not ready for a battery quite yet, and I wanted the battery-free experience. On this paved test track, there wasn't really any way to test the traction. I was just experiencing the overall feel of the trike, and it's a lovely trike. The fact is, if I'm going to be riding on pavement, I'm going to be wanting a road bike. That's what I use my road bikes for. So I was eager to get on the gravel to see where the HASE was really going to shine. And there we are on gravel. And the gravel does not seem to be slowing me down very much. In fact, one of these HASE trikes would be pretty darn good where I live in central Illinois. Like I say, we have more heinous gravel, and that differential would make a big difference on it. And now I am eagerly approaching the little gravel grade on the gravel test track, because that is the only part of the whole test track where I would be able to experience the difference. Okay, here's the moment of truth. How will the HASE with differential perform on the gravel? Oh, look at me going off-road. Okay, there we go. Going up the little grade, no problem. It has great traction. If I'm going to be anywhere with a grade like that, I would want a differential like that. But of course, I would want all the other features of all the other trikes and bikes. I would like the speed of a 2-wheel long wheelbase, and I would like the suspension of the Steintrike, and I would like the traction of the HASE with differential. And unfortunately, you cannot put all of those into a single bike. I guess that's why we have garages, so we can put more than one bike in there. I did not try that quad those people are trying up there. I'm sure it would have been fun. I should add that I am car free, so it's not like I have a car to tote these things around in. If I'm going to go to some ugly terrain to ride on, I'm going to be biking there. So off-road, where it's flat, the differential didn't really make a big difference. And I was comparing it to the Steintrikes. It's like comparing apples and oranges. They're completely different experiences, completely different rides. They have completely different strengths. The HASE was definitely less comfortable on really rough terrain. I would not be going on and off pavement the way I was on the Steintrike. I think I had the idea right there and then changed my mind. However, if I were going uphill on slippery stuff, I would prefer the HASE for sure. My understanding from trying various trikes is that is sort of the Achilles heel of tadpoles, is the difficulty getting traction on that single rear wheel. And I don't really know how you solve that problem other than getting a completely different configuration, like a Delta with differential. I want to say that it was comfortable. The seat was comfortable. Just about every seat is comfortable. There are great seats on trikes these days. And it looks like that wraps up my HASE experience.
All right. Thank you very much, Nina, and Denny Voorhees for shooting the video of the test track with Nina, checking those bikes and trikes out. We appreciate that. All right, folks, let's finish up with viewer submission. Larry, go ahead and start the video, and I'll intro it while the video is going here, if you would. This was Veterans Day this past week, and I wanted to have some kind of representation of the great veterans around the world here in the U.S. that have given their service to us. And I had a email from our pal Max Shaver Jr. He told me about his buddy's video from last month, where he attended the Honor the Warriors ride in Charlotte, North Carolina. So this is Sean Greener. He created this video here, and let me tell you what Sean said about this ride. Honor the Warriors, www.honorthewarriors.org, blesses veterans and their families throughout the year, and this is the 13th year of the big annual ride, and it gets better every year. Thank you to all of the great volunteers that come from as far away as Oklahoma and Illinois to help and to contribute. The wonderful Mint Hill Women's Club outdid themselves with their fantastic banquet of home-cooked deliciousness. The Mecklenburg County Sheriff's motorcycle deputies kept us safe on the Charlotte, North Carolina streets, and we so appreciate them. Thank you isn't enough to represent the blessings of the HTW founders, Jerry and Jane Morris, are to the disabled veterans they help every single day. I'm one of those so blessed by the HTW, and I can't thank you enough. Well, thank you very much, Shawn, for submitting that that great video, and I'm glad you and the Warriors had a great ride there in North Carolina last month. All right, guys, and as a reminder, if you have something to submit to our show for viewer submissions, hit us up at laidbackbikereport@gmail.com, and we'll see if we can't represent you on a show. Now it's time to thank our amazing sponsors. The webcast is not possible without these wonderful guys, including TerraCycle. From fairings to headrests, whatever accessory you need, Pat and crew have you covered. And Trailside Trikes. If you find yourself in Florida near the Withlacoochee Trail or in Knoxville, Tennessee, check out Andrew's shop and his amazing crew. And TerraTrike and Greenspeed trikes. Your vision, whatever it is, TerraTrike has a trike to take you there. And Greenspeed cutting-edge designs create performance through Aussie ingenuity. And Laid Back Cycles, the top USA dealer for TerraTrike and the premier source for Kettwiesel, Ice, and Greenspeed. We give you the freedom to ride. And Connecticut Yankee Peddler. We feature multiple brands of trikes, including electric assist models. Test rides and Southern Iowa hospitality are always available at our mega store in Cheriton. And Avenue Trikes. With the gearing you need and the comfort you want, it's time to enjoy riding again. They're in stock, ready to ship, and only $19.95. Dealer inquiries are welcome. And AZUB. In addition to the titanium suspension, another technological gem brought to you by AZUB is an optional folding mechanism. It's not only easy to operate, but works great and looks fantastic. And Recumbent PDX, Kettwiesel's West Coast Megastore. Schedule your test ride on trikes with pedal assist electric from both Bosch and Bafang, roll-off and schlump component groups, and adaptive builds. Experience the joy of Kettwiesel's. And EcoCycles. Adding e-assist to your bent can be a daunting task. With total focus on customer service, the experts at EcoCycles make this upgrade simple and worry-free. Check out EcoCycles today. All right, guys. So let's give you a bit of an update. I have been a busy editor this past month. I have cranked out, 20 or 30 videos, all from CycleCon and Battle Mountain, have placed them into playlists on our YouTube channel, Laid Back Bike Report. You can find them all there. I think there's some wonderful stuff there. Now, next week, if I get a little bit more time, I'm going to try to assemble those back into a big video for each, a CycleCon and a Battle Mountain video. And we'll add all the extras, the outtakes, and we've got some test rides, more test rides from the track that Trey and I shot. All the extra stuff that we didn't include in the smaller videos, we'll put that all together. It'll be indexed. It'll have a table of contents. So everything will be in one video, although it'll be a long one. You can go there and then just, if you want to find one particular booth at CycleCon or one particular rider at Battle Mountain, you can just do a little click and you'll go right to that video. So hopefully that'll be convenient for you as well. So look for that coming up next week. And thanks for all your patience for waiting for me to get those things edited after a month or so. All right, the next Laid Back Bike Report will be December 4th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Working on some stuff right now. I will keep you posted on the website and Facebook as to what will be coming up then. All right, how can you support the Laid Back Bike Report? If you liked what you've watched here today, please support us by liking us on Facebook, subscribing to us on YouTube, and you can click that little white eye right up there, take you to our website. You can also, if you go to the website, I just a couple days ago added some merchandise, a merchandise page to it. kind of experimental, but if you're looking for something with some of our Nina Paley logos on it, shirts and hats and mugs and stuff for the holiday season, give it a look at the laidbackbikereport.com website and let me know what you think about all that. So Patreon supporters are all right here. We've got a couple of new ones that we wanted to thank for this month. Terrence O'Brien joined up. We thank you, Terrence. And just today, Mike Mowat. Mike, thank you so much for your support. You've always given us plenty of support personally, and now financially. It's greatly appreciated. So thanks, guys. All right. You want to bring everybody up, Larry, see who's left here? We can thank all of the crew and Ron for the great job that you all did. Thank you all so much for everything you do today and what you do every month for us. Appreciate it, guys. So thanks to all of those guys. And most of all, thanks to all of you for watching. So until our next webcast, from all of us here at the Laid Back Bike Report, so long, Bent Riders.